Hi, welcome to Coffee with Carrie. Here's your host, Director of Cable and Community Relations, Carrie Lazat.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Carrie. This is a live show. We broadcast live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you're watching the replay later, thanks for joining us. We talk to the people who are running Bloomfield Township and making it a wonderful place to live and to work. And today I welcome our Chief of Police, James Gallagher. Welcome, Chief.
Good morning.
So originally we were going to talk about your first 6 months on the job, but because of the events that happened at Temple Bethel on Friday, that's what we're going to talk about first. For those of you who may not be aware of what happened at the Temple on Friday, December 2nd, a man showed up at the Temple on Friday morning at a time when parents were taking their children to school. He was shouting disgusting and offensive comments to try and get some attention. Bloomfield Township was on site within minutes, still on the 911 call when they arrived, and additional units were called in. And the entire exchange was recorded or broadcast live on Instagram by the suspect. So that generated a lot of eyes on the video and people seeing things that they weren't expecting. And I think that Chief Gallagher, I know you can't really comment fully on the ongoing investigation, and it's frustrating for people not to know the details. But I think one of the biggest questions that's out there right now is that it appeared that the officer who was responding fist bumped the suspect, and it felt like maybe he was in agreement with some of the vitriol that he was spouting. Can you explain what was happening at that moment?
Yeah, first, I think we have to acknowledge that this was an absolutely disgusting incident. And I've said it in the past that in my 23 years, this video was very difficult to watch after it was posted. Just the language and the way he treated individuals in that parking lot that day, it was terrible to watch. But as far as the incident, it came in as a non-emergency call. Luckily, an officer was in the area and was able to stop the vehicle as soon as it was leaving. And we are aware of his video out there that appears to show that does show our officer being jovial and kind of overly friendly with the individual. And we have to kind of take a step back for just a minute on that and put ourselves in the officer's position on what he knew at that time. What he could be walking up to. He did know that he could be potentially walking up to a unstable situation, somebody who could be in a behavioral crisis. So his job at that time was, one, positively identify the individual in that van so we could continue our investigation, determine if a crime occurred, and defuse and de-escalate. And whether that's a pat on the back, in this case, it was a fist bump, a handshake. We try to come down to the level of the individual when we're dealing with him at that time.
Sure. I think one of the other questions that you just started to talk about was about the identification of the individual, because I think that he was asked for his ID and he didn't provide it. So why isn't that enough to arrest him?
That is a valid question, and we have had that question, and we have to look at, again, this was not a traffic stop for a traffic violation. Mm-hmm. We were looking to see if there was a crime occurring, and there's different laws that pertain to that. But when an average driver is stopped, they are required to show their driver's license. We do get people who refuse to do so. So we'll use our law enforcement information network that we have in all our cars and try to verify other avenues to identify somebody. In this case, we had his license plate. He verbally gave us his name. Those two matched. The officer then returned to his patrol car. We're able to pull up driver's license photos in our car for most individuals. And in this case, we were able to. So the officer was sure that he had the correct individual on the traffic stop. And to further diffuse that situation, he was not going to try to force somebody out of their car. As we wanted to further the investigation from there.
Right, because the main goal is to get him off the site. Right?
Yeah, we wanted to diffuse that situation and eliminate that immediate disruption to the Temple Bethel and their members.
Right. I think the third thing that was, we're seeing a lot of people asking about is that he said at the end, before he drove away, that he was going to drive to another temple. And so how was he allowed to drive away. What happened after that?
Well, at the time, we had no witness statements to show that a crime occurred. And while which is very frustrating because later on we see the video and how disturbing that video is. But at that moment we didn't. So he was able to leave. And, we have our way of communicating with other other police departments, which we did, a little while after. And, again, we will review this incident administratively as we do with any incident we go on, whether it's, use of force or anything like that. We always do an administrative review, to determine where we can be better as a police agency. And we already know a couple of the things, on that traffic stop that we could have done better.
Well, and it didn't stop there. I mean, you got to work right away. And as a result, where is this guy now? What happened after, into the weekend?
We did. And just to give you a little timeline real quick there, this call came in just before 9 a.m. on Friday morning. Again, there was no victims or witnesses that were left on scene when the officers went right to that scene while this officer was on a traffic stop. But most of the parents left. They did not want to stay there, rightfully so. So it took a while for us to start finding, the investigation took more of a public eye, and we were able to start identifying witnesses. So we continued that investigation. As soon as we started corroborating information, we took our necessary steps to continue this investigation and make sure that the necessary steps that we knew he would not be an immediate threat to our temple, to our community, or any surrounding community.
And so what are the charges that are brought against him? Because they were brought against him on Sunday.
They were brought in on Sunday. We submitted our information to the prosecutor's office at about 10 p.m. Friday night. So a little after 13 hours of the initial incident, we had our information at the prosecutor's office. It's a lengthy review. We got lucky with the video he posted, that we were able to use that and corroborate some of our victims' information. And based on that review, the prosecutor's office charged the defendant now with 2 counts of ethnic intimidation. They're both felonies.
Excellent. So that's a good result.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about the relationship with the Jewish community and how there have been ongoing discussions all weekend and even prior to the incident, that the relationship as far as educating your officers and what goes into what goes into that? Yeah.
First, I'll talk about the communication aspect of it. I think it has to go beyond just the Jewish Federation right away, because this was a communication immediately that started between myself and Supervisor Walsh, as she was obviously getting phone calls. We then extended that to the majority of our board internally. In the meantime, we do have a great relationship with the Jewish Federation and the Temple Bethel and our Jewish community, and we'll continue to improve that relationship. I know we have some things to overcome here, but just in 2019, Captain Dan Edwards here was invited with the Jewish Federation to go to Israel, and so he did. So we have a great relationship, and because of that relationship, Captain Edwards was immediately involved with Temple Bethel and the Jewish Federation Security Council, and that communication was constant at all hours of the day throughout till Sunday afternoon. And we were in as an administration from both our township administration, police administration, our detective bureau. We were in several times over the weekend to make sure to further this investigation and make sure we give it the rightful attention that it deserved because of how deplorable it is.
Sure. And I think, we're just in a day and age where people are used to watching we watch a lot of procedural television at my house, and, you sit down in an hour and you see the case unfold and everything's wrapped up pretty easily, but it's just not like that in real life and things like this. I mean, it's pretty surprising, actually. I think that it was taken care of as quickly as it was, and that he was, from Friday to Sunday, we have a pretty good result.
Yeah, and the minute we were able to start corroborating information, we reached out to where the defendant lives, which is in the Dearborn area, and the Dearborn Police Department immediately helped us out, verifying the location and many things. And I wish we could have come out throughout the time and informed people, but there's investigative techniques we use that we have to protect the integrity of the investigation, number one, because we don't want to jeopardize the prosecution. and for the safety of the others involved with that. The cleanest way for us to do this investigation is to present the case to the prosecutor's office and get a warrant for someone's arrest.
So I just want to open it up to our viewers. If you are watching and you have a comment or a question for Chief Gallagher, we can certainly answer that live as we're talking here. And we really appreciate you sharing these details. Is there anything else that you want to talk about related to this specific incident?
No, I want our community to know, all of our community, but in this particular instance, this time it was the Jewish community. It could be another community at another time, and we stand with them. We will protect them, and when we will always review what we do to ensure that we're deploying and operating in the best practices. And when we find areas where we can improve, we will make those improvements.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I think that, anti-Semitism is on the rise and threats are on the rise in general. And so this is going to be an ongoing conversation, I think, with our community. It
will absolutely be an ongoing investigation. And I missed one part of your question earlier about the education aspect. Ironically, in the last two weeks or so, I've attended events for law enforcement at the Holocaust Museum. And prior to this incident, so we have a event scheduled for January 4th. Our entire command staff is going to an event there at the Holocaust Museum to learn more about the anti-Semitism, so that we are better prepared and we understand from the perspective of the Jewish community what they endure, because many of us are not Jewish, so we don't experience it every day or how they feel every day.
Right. And it's not just threats in the Jewish community, it's just threats in general, right? So, even just 2 weeks ago, I think we want to talk a little bit about what's going on in schools, because it's this incident itself has kind of superseded what had happened, but it was just a little while ago that you were standing with the superintendent of schools to talk about threats in the schools and their consequences. And can you tell us why this statement had to be made?
Well, we were approaching the tragedy of the anniversary of Oxford on November 30th. In all of our school districts across this county, including here at home in Bloomfield Township, we were all experiencing some sort of threats, whether it was individual to individual, student to student, or overall threats to the school buildings or school community. We felt it was important to work with our local local school administration, and it kind of, our local partners agreed to partner with us on that. So we met extensively, and we the school made a video that they shared with our community.
Mm-hmm. We do have a comment from someone who's watching right now. I'm going to put that up on the screen. I heard the person has mental health issues. Any updates? Now, I don't think we can really, that's something that we really can't comment on. Is that right?
That's correct. We can't comment on any individual, but what I will say is that we are dealing with an increase in mental health. Behavioral crisis is a problem. And I know we're getting a little bit off of the topic there of the school, but we recognize that here in Bloomfield Township, and we partnered ourselves here with Auburn Hills, Birmingham, and Bloomfield Township. And we just added the city of Rochester on our co-responder social worker team. So we have a social worker embedded within our police agencies that assists us in these with people in crises. Now, they don't perform, they'll do on-scene assessments, but they do not take a caseload herself. Her name is Hillary, but she will help us provide and find the resources for individuals.
Well, and I think that, just talking about mental health in general, I just wanted to mention, thank you, Hassan, for your comment on that, because we just recently added this mental health resources page to the Bloomfield Township website, because there are a lot of resources available for the community when they're in crisis, but it's like, you just want to start doing a Google search. We put them all in one place for everybody, and we'll put up the bit.ly so that you can see exactly where to get to that. Let me put that up right here. So oh, it already was up. Thanks, Steve. So that's part of, just the start of a response to make mental health and what's going on with that something that people are more comfortable talking about and asking for help and finding those resources. So we have another comment. It's from our Bloomfield Township Director. This is our Tara Moon. She directs the Bloomfield Township Library. Is there anything other organizations like the library can do to support law enforcement in keeping the community safe?
You know, it's our job to keep the community safe. What we want is if in this instance at the Temple Bethel, and it's not to point fingers, we only received one non-emergency call. If we want our residents to know if they feel unsafe, especially in a situation such as that, it is absolutely okay. We encourage them to call 911. That helps us get more information out. We need the community to understand that in an incident like this, it doesn't happen in that hour. There's so much going on behind the scenes that we just can't share at times, that we learn through law enforcement avenues that we're not allowed to share based on laws and our systems. So that's our biggest thing, is educating our community and partnering with us. When we see something, say something. If it doesn't feel right and you have that feeling, we get paid to be nosy, and that we want to come out and address these concerns, and maybe we can help somebody along the way that needs our help.
Right. Follow your gut. That's what you're saying.
Follow your gut. If it doesn't seem right, we're here for you.
Do we talk about how many more calls you're receiving since COVID, like since we kind of opened back up? Because I feel like I remember that at one of our department head meetings that you talked about, we were just getting, for police and fire, we were getting, and the kinds of incidents that are being reported and things that are happening, it's just not what was usual pre-COVID.
Yeah. Pre-COVID, once COVID hit, obviously our call volumes went down. We're a primary residential community, just about 95% residential. So with all the lockdowns and things like that, our traffic accidents went down, our traffic stops went down. So our overall calls for service declined. But it appears the seriousness, and I don't have the numbers off the top of my head when it comes to the actual call volume increasing, the seriousness of the calls, the alcohol-related accidents, or and this year we talk about the fatalities we've had involving those things. That takes a lot of manpower and a lot of hours to investigate. We've had, unfortunately, we had recently the Steve's Deli shooting. Those take a lot of resources, and that's what we're seeing is in these mental health calls. We're spending more time on these calls for successful conclusion to these calls for service, but it's taking additional resources. And that's where those are the things as a law enforcement community we learn post George Floyd, post other things as a whole. Just because that happened somewhere else does not mean Bloomfield Township internally doesn't look at it and say, what do we need to change? Where do we need to go? And what kind of police department does our community want?
Well, from what I understand, as far as the reputation of the Bloomfield Township Police Department in the state is that our standards are a little bit higher than others as far as the education of the officers and what you're looking for as far as who's on your crew. So, and I know with the millage that passed recently, you'll be doing some hiring. Do you want to talk about what you'll be looking for?
Well, we're hoping we're in the process of getting our budget approved, but we did ask for additional 5 officers. Our township's been very supportive. Our administration has been very supportive with that request. So hopefully we can bring our traffic unit back. When hiring became a little bit of a problem, we do require a bachelor's degree, so it limits our field of hiring, but we believe that's representative of our community, and we hire a little bit more mature of an officer at the beginning of their career. We've been very fortunate to hire some fantastic police officers, and some of them in laterals from other agencies that bring a wealth of knowledge and experience. So we're hoping in the future to add some officers to help, again, bring some services back to the township of what, again, we want to provide a service that our residents expect from us. And we do set the standard high. And that's why we talk about reviews and deploying the best practices, admitting our mistakes when we know them.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for your time today, and I know that we'll continue to talk more in the future. And are there any final comments?
No, we stand with our community. While this occurred at the Temple Bethel, our overall community is affected by it. It's hit home for us. We've heard about it in other, nearby jurisdictions, but it now within our jurisdiction and in our township and our families, and we take that seriously, and our officers are empathetic to that. We want that to be known out there. We expect our officers to treat everybody, regardless if you're a victim, a witness, or a suspect, with dignity and respect. It goes a long way when we're doing things.
Well, thanks again for joining me and answering the questions. I know they're tough questions, and I think you did a good job. So
Thanks.
Thank you. And I wish you and all of your officers a safe and happy holiday season.
Great. Thank you.
Everyone, thanks for joining me on Coffee with Carrie. This is your community resource, the community television station where we're operating out of and broadcasting. So if you have comments or if you'd like to talk to us, we're always here. Just come on in and say hello, or reach out if you'd like to make your own show. Or if you have additional comments for Chief Gallagher, he is open to having face-to-face conversations, and that's what he's been doing a lot of. So feel free to get in touch with us. Thanks so much, and have a good one.